I'd like to welcome to our screens Amelia. Is Amelia Dowell there? Doug McGinn, Debbie Hindle, Carol Devereaux, and Alexis Smith. And all these people are from the University of Tasmania. So welcome and thank you for being with us in our last breakaway session. And I'm looking forward to your presentation today on emerging model for cross-team collaboration, disability and student learning at the University of Tasmania. So this sensational group are going to share progress towards a model of integrated student support between the disability and student learning areas at the University of Tasmania that you have gleaned over the last 2 years. So thank you very much for all of you for being with us, and I look forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having us, especially in this final session. Today there will be three of us presenting, myself, Amelia, Carol Devereaux, and Alexis Smith.
Hi.
They're here with me as well. So I'll just, oh no, I lost my mouse. Okay, here we go. So we'll introduce ourselves first and then tell you what we're talking about. So I'm a student learning advisor. Our main job is to help students develop their writing skills, English language skills, academic skills. And I've got this picture on the right-hand side of the screen of a whole lot of messy Lego blocks. They're all different colors and shapes, and it's just chaos. And I often use this picture to talk with people about what I do in my job, because it can take a little while to work through the mess of a university assignment or working out exactly what you need to do to write your assignment or do something like that. And there are these little building blocks that you've got to find and put together and create your thing. So we're helping create something ordered from the chaos.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today, and I hope we live up to our introduction. The last is the best. I'm not sure about that, but anyway, we'll do our best. So I'm Carol Devereaux. I'm one of the disability advisors within Accessibility Services, and I'm based in the south of Tasmania. So basically we're servicing our students' needs university-wide, no matter where they are. So our role is really to meet with students who've disclosed with them in unpacking their needs within the study context of uni. My picture that I've chosen has a range of rocks. They're all different, but sort of all the same, but all different. So I think that sort of really exemplifies what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Often we're the first contact for our students, so trying to ascertain the scope of services and supports required a really, really important part of our role, just to try and ensure students are successful with their study at our institution. And over to Alexis.
Hi everyone. So I'm Alexis. I'm the Accessibility Liaison Officer, which is sort of, it means I'm a bitzer. I do a bit of everything at the moment. So a lot of admin around the disability support area. I also see students in a sort of supervised disability advisor capacity during peak times, but my main focus this year has been around implementing Access, which is our new database for that we're using for accessibility services, and that's what we're generating our learning access plans through. So yeah, just been sort of putting that into the UTAS system and making it work for us. And I chose plants because I love plants.
Excellent. Thanks so much. So today we're going to be talking about the way that we've been working together across student learning and disability. And as the title said, it's really a work in progress. We've been working together over the last couple of years, and part of the reason we wanted to come to Pathways and talk about what we've been doing is because we'd love to hear about what you're doing as well, working across teams and how you've gotten things to work really well. So we'll be speaking about students with specific learning disabilities, mostly, and how we've worked together. So first off, the disability team's perspective, then my team's perspective on the problems, and then some solutions, short, tiny case study, and then we'd like to leave a fair bit of time for discussion if people have ideas and thoughts. On this next slide, I've got a picture of a pencil that's been sharpened from both ends. And this really is sort of what we had been doing before we got started. There was a problem, but we were approaching it separately in our own ways. But what we've been trying to do is work together and sort of combine our efforts and make a difference to the student experience and make sure people are getting the support they need. So I'll hand back to Carol now to talk about her perspective on what's been going on.
Okay, thanks very much, Amelia. So as a disability advisor, you never really know who's going to walk through your door and what issues you're going to be presented with. So students, as we know, come from very diverse backgrounds with a range of experiences and conditions. And it's not uncommon for students to present with a myriad of different issues that span a range of disability types and situations. And I've been into a couple of sessions in the last couple of days where that's been talked about quite a lot. So it's really important that we understand that. Now, our role as a disability advisor is to try and unpack these and gain some understanding of the challenges that the university study environment does present for those individual students. Now, that's quite an ask in a 50-minute time slot when you consider we're not only providing a very receptive and empathetic ear, but we're also trying to gain enough detail about the student to make some professional and informed decisions regarding the services and supports that we can offer. Now, we want to ensure that the student has an enjoyable and a successful experience as they move into this university sector. And for many, even disclosing about their disability or their health condition can be a real challenge. So we're obviously very mindful of that fact. Now, in the majority of cases, what we do is develop a learning access plan. And this is developed in conjunction with the student, and it does provide a formal document outlining the reasonable adjustments within the study context. This is usually a rather concise document outlining the nature of the condition, the impacts on study, and then any agreed adjustments that can be made. With the University of Tasmania version, this also does require final approval from the relevant college responsible for that student's course of study. Now, the Learning Access Plan will provide details about classroom considerations, exam adjustments, extra writing time, resting time, timetabling, etc., etc. However, it does not always meet all the needs of students. And as part of our role, we need to then determine what are the other university services we can introduce to the student to help support them through their study journey. And this is when we often need to refer to other teams for support and expertise, and includes those services such as counselling and student learning supports. Now, what we've found is that one of the key emerging student cohorts are those students who disclose regarding specific learning disabilities. So alongside the development of the LAP, we often find the need for referral to learning supports, and hence the growing interaction we've found between disability services and student learning services. Thanks, Amelia. Can you just go to the next slide for me? So, it's often very easy for a student to get lost in these processes within a uni. There's no one-stop shop, so linking students with the services that can assist is a really crucial part of ensuring their success. The uni environment's often a whole new world, and the adjustments and transitions for students can be really difficult, especially for those who don't feel really confident in this learning environment. They may find it difficult to ask when they're not sure about processes or service areas. And the university is often presenting a whole new model of support, one they're probably not used to at all. So without creating some connections for those students, they may not always get the help they actually need. So part of our task then is often around explanation about how support services work within the university context, and then providing a more personalised link to these services. So we find that this can help with their confidence and also provides pertinent information for the student learning team. So what I'd like to do now is hand back to Amelia, and she'll provide some information from the student learning perspective.
Excellent. Thank you, Carol. So from the student learning perspective, I'll just start back sort of how it was maybe 2 years ago when students came who had specific learning disabilities. In general, the student learning advisors didn't know how to help. We didn't know how to use our skills really to help these students. We didn't know what tools were available for them, so what sort of software might be helpful, what the university already had. And by the time the student walked out of the door, we often felt like we hadn't done anything very useful at all. We also found that sometimes the referrals didn't have the context that we needed. So sometimes we were unsure why a student had come because disclosure can be quite difficult. And it's also then within a context that's unexpected. So if someone goes to see a disability advisor, the topic is already decided. You're going to talk about a disability or some kind of challenge you're having in your studies. When a student comes to see a learning advisor, they then have to bring up that topic from scratch. So if we don't know that's what they want to talk about, they have to do that hard work of talking about this thing. And sometimes I'd find that students, just as they're walking out the door, would say, oh, by the way, I have dyslexia. So, oh, okay. That's a good place to start the next time you come along. So that trust building really can take time. And we found that we were often on the back foot with that. So some of the things that were making this difficult were the university communication processes between teams that were quite complex and quite time consuming. And all of these issues just really culminated in quite a reactive approach to support, that there'd be a problem and we'd be scrambling to work out how we could fix it. So we've really tried to improve this over the last few years and collaboratively, like through improving our communication and that type of thing, come up with a range of solutions. And of course, it's still, in progress. But the main thing is that it's been a collaborative approach through improving our communication. Some of this is pretty informal, or sometimes we're setting up meetings or working on a specific issue that's come up. But two of the main things we've done have improved or personalised that referral process, Carol will speak about in a moment, and worked on knowledge sharing and capacity building, particularly in my team.
Okay, back to me. Yes, thanks. So let's join some of those dots for our students. So referral. Now there's a referring and there's a referring. With some students, you can simply provide the information about the supports and that's enough. They'll go, they'll seek the support they need when they need it. However, for others, it's really important that we provide a more concrete link with the service area and the people who are going to offer that support. We tend to call these hard or soft referrals. I'm sure everybody does the same. But the important thing is that the referral suits both the student and the practitioner. So we've tried not to be too prescriptive about how we go about this. Now, one way is to organise a joint appointment. That's where the disability advisor, the student and the student learning advisor would be brought together, and it would be almost like a handover session. So the disability advisor would organise that. They would perhaps be part of that initial meeting for the first few minutes, giving and encapsulating some of the key strategies around what they felt might be required without, as I said before, being too prescriptive, because that's really then going to be up to the student and the student learning advisor. But it is a good way of basically making that introduction to the service. Another way it would be sending an email introduction. So the DA provides pertinent information via email to the student learning advisor, but of course copies in the student so they're aware of the information that's being passed on. And this is only done with student permission. So that way it's the students feeling, okay, I've had that discussion with the DA. I've now been linked via this email with this other person who I don't know, but they're supposed to be able to help me. One thing we've found, especially with Amelia, and I'll give her 10 out of 10 for this, it's really important that the student then feels really welcomed by that new support person. So Amelia's often responded just with a quick little email to a student from the original DA contact, just introducing herself and letting the student know she's looking forward to meeting them. So that in itself can be a really constructive and positive way for the student to then feel, okay, this is all going to be okay. So we've always found, also found at times that we as practitioners need to stay in touch with how that student's then going. So there are times when students are referred back to disability services, perhaps in the context of amending or updating their learning access plan, or perhaps it's around other supports and services that we need to be offering. So it's not really just a handover and forget, it's then a collaborative way of working with students so that they feel that they can come to either of us or other services and that we will be there to help meet their needs. So it's an ongoing and an evolving process. Thanks, Amelia.
Thank you. So when it comes to building capacity, that's been pretty huge for our team. So as student learning advisors, we're language experts, and a lot of us have a background in English language education, but knowing how we can use those skills and to sort of re-equip a little bit to work with students who have specific learning disabilities, dyslexia, it was a little bit out of our understanding for a little while. And so we've gone through a process of formal and informal training. I was very lucky to go to an assistive technology day in Launceston a couple of years ago, which just changed our world. So I went and learned a whole lot about the software and support that's available, and have been able to gradually share that with the team, made some little videos, well, sort of recently, that can be sent out with that early referral process, which just sort of helps give people a jump start with what they need to do. And of course, ADSAT and the amazing resources and webinars. So there's a lot of stuff out there, but there are also some really amazing, generous individuals around the place. So through our social inclusion community of practice at the university, we've been able to get in touch with people who are skilled in this area and who know a lot about dyslexia, and they've run some in-house training for us specifically for support staff, which has been amazing. And we've gone to days organised by Dear Dyslexic and that kind of thing. So it's almost been like a drip feed as little bits over time that have really improved what we're able to do. And then, of course, sharing practice however we're able to do. So this means that when we do workshops or when we do consultations, we're feeling much more confident about what we can do and how we can shift and use those existing skills we have to support another group of students. So we incorporate information into our mainstream programs about the software that's available, the other support that's available, and we're pretty proactive in how we share information. Just trying to keep an eye on the time. Okay. The other really great thing that's happened is a student network. So one of the disability advisors who was working with us created a student network. They called themselves the LD Legends. They've now formed a student society with a student union, and they are a really fantastic support network for each other. And it's been a good network to be sort of sharing advice with. So to begin with, our role there was to just support them and as they were going through, but now they're pretty independent, and actually soon they're running an online session for pre-service teachers on how they can support students with learning disabilities. So it's really kind of gone full circle. So our future steps at the moment, so we've been able to achieve a fair bit through this ongoing communication and just improving what we're doing, but it's still a little bit point dependent, and we need to become more strategic. So, review ways of working with student groups and becoming more strategic, but Alexis has some ideas about this as well in her role.
Yeah, so thanks, Amelia. So around Access, which is our database, a new database system that I mentioned earlier, basically the goal is to try and keep as much of the information about the student in there as possible, and keep as much of the referral, just anything that Accessibility Services does, we want to try and keep it within Access so that's in the one spot. The good thing is that we can provide people with different permissions. So, for example, I've given Amelia permissions to see the students' learning access plans, but that's all. So there's no breach of confidentiality around medical documentation, but it means that if we ask the student, like, are you okay for Amelia to see your learning access plan? It means that rather than sending it via an email, which is, can be compromised, Amelia can actually just log into Access and view it that way. We can also generate automatic emails that we can sort of tailor for each student if we are doing a referral. So that's what we're working on next, sort of looking at that referral process and how we can streamline that and keep that within Access. Yeah.
Thanks so much. So we have just a very, very tiny case study because we don't have very much time, just to sort of put it into context. This is a student with dyslexia, as an international PhD student, who was in touch with Carol. Carol, did you want to give a brief outline?
Yeah, sure. So I had contact from this particular candidate at IMAS in their second year. I'm just going to take a tiny little snippet out of the information that she sent to me. We were hoping that we would have an actual case study with a real life student, but sorry, it didn't actually happen. So, yesterday, I just had a quick look through the information that this particular student had said. Had a meeting with my supervisors to discuss my progress. Prior to the meeting, I thought my problem was around scientific writing. However, in the meeting, they addressed I also have a problem with my English, being able to see a problem and issues with sentences and words. This was a new problem they shared with me. So she's gone all the way through her undergrad degree, and it's then got to a certain type of writing, and she's really feeling at a loss about what can I do. So came through to disability services in terms of what can you do to help me? How can you help in terms of what my supervisors are expecting? And what are some of the, information channels I've got available to me that would then allow my supervisors to become aware of what it is about dyslexia that's making things so hard for me. So I felt that was a little bit out of, my context of a DI and my professional knowledge. So I felt that through student learning, there may have been some supports available there. So contact with Amelia.
Yeah, and yes, and we've worked quite a bit this year, back and forth, and yeah, seems to be all going well. She's a bit of a hero for the LD Legends as well, doing a PhD. Okay, so I saw we've got under 5 minutes now. It'd be really wonderful to hear from you because I know there's so much knowledge and experience in this room. We're curious as to how you work with other services, and if you've been working between student learning and disability, for example, like if I don't know, it would be really great. Yeah, to hear any thoughts you might have. Otherwise, we can continue rambling about what we've been doing for a few minutes.
I'm just going to have a quick look and see if there's anything in there just at the moment. Just a couple of points about communication with our students, so important. Great.
It's been interesting because I've been trying to work out in general what sorts of relationships or working relationships there are between learning advisors like myself and disability teams. It's been a little bit hard to get information. I've heard a little bit about some types of referral processes, some ways of like a case management sort of model that sounds really like it could be very helpful. So I know it's a really common thing to be happening in the UK, and I just don't hear as much here, which is, yeah, there's got to be a lot of great work happening.
I'm sure there's some more questions that are coming in.
Let's have a look.
I must say, while you are looking, I think you're all 10s. I think you're all very talented.
I think we come from a pretty amazing sector, though. There's, so many great practitioners out there with wonderful ideas, and sometimes you just get so busy it's really hard to sort of remove yourself from your on the ground work to be able to share. So if there's nothing that comes up at the moment, obviously we'd be really happy to get some feedback from anywhere else around, from anyone who's doing something similar or has trialed something similar, because yeah, we're really keen to, I guess, formalize this a little bit more. So if, as Amelia was saying, it's pretty point dependent at the moment. So having some sort of process in place that can then be handed through to new people coming onto the team we live in hope that that might happen, new people onto the team. But yeah, that would be so greatly appreciated. So yeah, please, if you've got any ideas, and if it's not now, then maybe through Ofsted would be great. Thank you.
People might be a little bit like me, Carol. I'm a bit of a reflector, so I'll think about some things and then sort of engage.
Yeah.
Sorry, Debbie. This is Anna Podorova speaking. It was taking me too long to write my question. Can I just ask it?
Please, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
I'm from the Faculty of Education at Monash University. We do use Access for our own needs for the literacy and numeracy team and the students who are preparing to sit or resit the LANTITE, the literacy and numeracy test for teachers. We talk to the disability unit, but we don't have a system that we could use to track student engagement or progress or with the support we provide. So we mostly rely on students disclosing their condition, or we almost prompt for it, because sometimes we can see whether it's a test anxiety or a reading disability that may be impacting on their performance. We do try to avoid the deficiency discourse when we talk about students with disabilities, but sometimes it's important to acknowledge that, as you say, as early as possible. Could you provide some advice on how would you do that if you were a learning skills advisor or an academic language advisor and you had a suspicion? How would you go about it?
So I would be asking a few questions about how they'd found reading and writing in general. I'm not an expert either. I'd just be sort of having some general chats about how reading and writing was at school. And sometimes if even just asking that question, people will talk, like, have a whole lot of experiences that they'll bring up about writing. Sometimes it will it's a really hard one. Sometimes it's pretty clear. They'll talk about family history of dyslexia, or they've often been worried about it or concerned about it. We do have a screening thing here that the disability team can do if they suspect someone might have a learning disability, and then they can be referred to the psychology clinic for assessment, which is pretty amazing. And I just sort of, in general, try to incorporate it into everything that we're doing and raise that awareness everywhere. So if I'm doing a mainstream workshop about reading strategies, I'll say, you know, by the way, we have a screening thing here if you have dyslexia, and you can see the disability advisors, and we've got all these other things available. It might also be, like, I obviously can't diagnose anyone or anything, but if they're having certain types of trouble, like accessing text, there's all that software that's available for everybody. Like in the Microsoft tools, and we've got a site license for read and write. So you can say, we can try these things. If they help you, you can go and see the disability advisors. Just try and, as much as possible, normalize it, that like 1 in 10 people are likely to have dyslexia in some, shape or form.
And
Yeah.
I'll just add in there too, we are lucky. Our Vice Chancellor has dyslexia and is very, very open about the fact that he has come along to the LD Legends meetings. And so it's almost an aspirational thing, I think, at UTAS, that look at our VC, here is a gentleman who is at the top of his field. He has dyslexia. He's battled through, and he talks very openly about his battles, but has actually, in the end, has succeeded extraordinarily well. So I think, as Amelia was saying, normalizing some of this stuff, it's not a bad thing. It's, you think a bit differently. It doesn't mean that that you can't do these things. It's just you've got to approach things in a different way. So then how do we look at those approaches? How do we look at those strategies that are actually going to work for you?
Thank you. And
Thank you,
any
Anna.
of your resources are available for to the public, or are mostly of them inside the systems?
At this stage, it's inside the system, but I should do something for all, like the academic language and learning organisation.
Yeah, I think you should. Yes.
Something else to add to your list there, Amelia.
Yes.
That's a very good question, Anna. And I think that's where we need to wrap up. I'm getting the wind up because there's a great screening that is going to happen very soon. So Alexis, Carol and Amelia, thank you very much. I think you have kind of raised our expectations of really what can be achieved when you, all this expertise that you work individually, but combining that on the same vision is just brilliant. And I think UTAS seems to be the place to go if you want to go and study if you have a disability or medical condition. So thank you very, very much for your presentation and being with us at Pathways today. Thank you. Appreciate it.